Good evening all and welcome to a Sky Gameweek 6 deadline stream from the 3-for-1 Sky Fantasy podcast by Fantasy Football Hub. My name is Fergie and I'm joined tonight by two of the most successful Sky managers in the game. Firstly, Paul McAnulty. Paul, how was your Game Week 5?
Yeah, it was pretty good, thanks Fergie. 98 points, so didn't break the 100 duct, but I was pretty happy with those returns.
Pretty good. We also have Ian Parrin with us, Dan's in work. Ian Parrin, great to have you with us once again. How was your Game Week 5, Ian?
Yeah, not so good as Paul's, Fergie, I'm afraid. Yeah, lots of no-shows, send-ins off, injuries. Yeah, not so clever. But we move on, as the FPL people say, to Game Week 6.
We move, whatever that means, indeed.
Yes.
Mine was okay. Scored 85. Nothing, nothing to shout home about. I had a Christensen who didn't start, which is obviously quite frustrating. And Calvert-Lewin I had as well. But I tell you one thing, being away, I've been away this week, obviously, which is why we didn't do a stream on Sunday. When you are away from football and fantasy football does take a bit of a backseat, which does help kind of, mentally. It was like, Calvert-Lewin isn't playing. Instead of spending a whole hour or two, panicking and and making a crap transfer, I just left it. And I'm so glad I did, and I should do that more often. It would have been the same with Rafinha this evening, actually. But speaking of that anyway, straight into the important stuff. And we have the lineups.
Teams in. Teams in.
Yep, the teams are in.
So, Newcastle, Darlow, Manquillo, Hayden, Lascelles, Clark, Ritchie, Longstaff, Willock, Almiron, St Maximin and Joe Linton. And then Leeds, Meslier, Ayling, Firpo, Cooper, Dallas, Phillips, Click, James, Rafina, Rodrigo and Bamford.
So it sounds like the Harrison rumour was true. He's not on the bench, is he, Harrison? Because there was
he's not on the bench.
He's not, because there was a rumour about him either having COVID or
wasn't it?
or he having to self-isolate. But there was all day, wasn't there, rumblings of Rafinha not being fit. But thankfully, Rafinha is fit, because that I think this pod have been kind of dominated about what to do, especially if we look at.
Looks like Dallas at right back to me, Ayling and Cooper at centre back, and Firpo at left back.
I got Ayling in FPL. I don't want him as centre back, flipping out, but
centre back.
Just looking then, at Dan's Friday Sky Captaincy, there was 127 votes. I think I took this about 3 o'clock this afternoon or something, but 72% of the votes, so 92 out of the 127, went for Rafinha. Which is obviously a massive amount of engaged managers, obviously who followed Dan and who took the time to go and vote on the site. Bamford with just 13 votes, 10%, and then a few for Cooper, Dallas, St Maximum and Ayling. We got a question for you both. Just based on that, like obviously most people are on Rafinha because they stuck him in their overhaul team for budgetary reasons, I would guess.
Or midfielder necessity reasons?
Yes. Would you rather have Rafinha as your captain, or would you rather have Bamford or someone else as your captain if you had like a free hit this evening? Ian, what do you think?
Free choice tonight, I'd go for Bamford. More like to score, more like to get shot bonus.
Okay. How about you, Paul?
Yeah, the same. But I don't mind as much. To answer your question, definitely Bamford, but I don't mind holding Rafinha, even though there will be a few Bamford captainers out there based on the ownership point.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I have neither.
You have neither. Who have you got here?
Yeah.
Emil Kraft.
Cooper.
You've got Cooper, have you? Yeah, I had him in my draft, and I kind of changed at the last minute, just because we weren't sure about. Because I think Leeds fans thought that if everyone was fit, that Llorente and Strike, would be the kind of preferred partnership, but obviously none of them are available at the moment, so it doesn't really matter, does it?
It just so happens that three of them are in.
Exactly. Good.
Or suspended.
Good evening, everyone. Great to have so many of you live with a chat. Apologies we couldn't make it on Sunday. I was away, and as Liam says, got a bit of a tan. Hopefully, got a little bit of a tan. This new light obviously helps that as well. All the makeup as well. I saw that Dan said on one of his things the other day that I put loads of makeup on. I don't put makeup on, but good. appreciate your comments there, Liam. Any more nice comments about my appearance any week actually would go down well. Paul gets them. He gets them all the time anyway because he's a good-looking bastard. So share the love. Good evening, Daniel Fergus, Phil Speck, Sam Smith, Rick W, Phil McMahon, Ryan Wilkins, Liam Doran, Michael Chappell, Dale Turner, Tom Hartnell, Glenn Murray, Brownie Sky FF. I did, had a lovely break. Thank you very much, Brownie. Owen Johnson says, alien in both teams. Wish me luck. I need it. He might be good for passing this evening at centre back. He's probably got more chance of passing at centre back than he has at right back, Owen. So he might be all right there. Billy Fraser and Darren Skidmore confirm Rafinha in. I'm sure that would have been like a massive topic of conversation. And Dale Turner, top 500 with 2 teams, with 2 transfers using both. Well done, Dale. Absolutely fantastic start. Lewis Phillips, Johnny White, Darren Skidmore he says 427 points. That's pretty high, I think, isn't it? Well done, guys. And welcome everyone else who is here this evening.
Fergie, Liam's in the chat.
He is in the chat, yeah.
Yeah, so between him and Ian, they need to work out which one's Jason Orange and which one's Keith Duffy. Because
I saw that earlier. Yeah,
Dan got a compliment that he's the Robbie Williams of this band. So he nominated you, Fergie, as Gary Barlow.
I'm happy with Gary Barlow, blimey.
Yeah, I've taken Mark Owen, so Ian and Liam can fight.
I have absolutely no idea, as I tweeted earlier.
You have, Ian. I'm sure you have. It's Mel Williams, first time watching live. Good evening, Mel. Great to have you with us. And Darren Skidmore says, will the tanned Fergie be bringing a calendar out for 2022 for the ladies? Absolutely, or for the gents, whichever, really, because a lot of guys in the chat all comment on my appearance. I will send you Darren and Liam. I'll send you a personalised signed copy. Don't worry about that. Good evening. Go on, buddy.
These live streams, this is where I can talk you into bringing in a Newcastle forward.
No, it's not. It's not because
Joe Linton, no.
I've left my phone over the other side. I'm really, really happy because I was scared actually with Rafinha because my plan all along was to just kind of leave, and if Rafinha's not playing, just leave it, just absolutely leave it. But I know you would have talked me into bringing in like Joe Linton for a 1 week punt. It's worth it. Upside and all this and all this crap. Let's just have a quick look then. So for this evening. So firstly, sorry, I do have a question. FPL Nim asked, if you don't have any Leeds this evening, would you bring a Leeds player in? So I found quite hard one to answer. Ian says no, definitely not. Paul,
no.
Paul, would you?
Unless it was you've got an issue with Webster, because Webster's been ruled out till after the international break now. So a Webster to Cooper move could be beneficial. You could pick up the captaincy, so you're getting 4 or 5 games, like including the double for tonight. So that would maybe be something I'd consider, but I probably wouldn't move any playing player because you're only gaining 1 extra game from it. And if the idea was not to have a Leeds player tonight, that would have been
there must be a reason for it.
Yeah, that would have been an overhaul thought anyway. So apart from maybe if you were getting rid of Webster anyway, and you had coverage from that Brighton Crystal Palace captaincy requirement, then I would maybe consider moving on to Cooper. But other than that, I'd probably leave it.
Well, there you go, Nim. Hope that answers your question. Phil Speck says Sky FF comedy calendar would be something. Maybe we can do something for Christmas, guys. Maybe we can do some kind of, calendar that we can sell for charity at Christmas with the 5 of us, doing all kinds of poses or whatever else. We'll have to have a serious think about that one. Let us know in the chat
about take some selling, mate. That
I know we'd have to pay people to actually do it, wouldn't we?
Is this another one of those Viz annuals situation?
Exactly.
Roger Melly, the man on the telly.
Steve Saunders, evening guys. First time playing. My team's currently 58th with 1 transfer used and 77th 2 transfer used. Flipping X, Steve. That is an incredible
Get
start.
him on the stream, mate.
Very, very well played, Steve. Can you give us some tips, please, on how to play this game, please? Season keepers, welcome. Great to have you on with us. And Tom Hart says, that's mega, Steve. Well done. That is mega, Steve. Very, very well played. Keep your nerve. That's the hard part, mate, in this game. Keep your nerve. Do not rush. In this evening, everyone is starting who we think will be starting. Don't think there's any real kind of surprises or anything. Rafinha, Bamford, maybe Ayling, Meslier and a couple of others are all starting. St. Maximin potentially as well. So I don't think there's probably too much point in going on tonight. But looking for tomorrow, Saturday the 18th, we have Wolves and Brentford, the early game tomorrow, followed by Burnley and Arsenal. I picked Ben White in my team. Why did I pick Ben White in my overhaul team? Liverpool will play Palace, Man City play Southampton, Norwich, Watford, Villa, and Everton the late game. And then on Sunday, Brighton, Leicester, West Ham, Man United, Tottenham, and Chelsea. Paul, so tomorrow, Salah captain?
Yeah, nice and easy. I wouldn't even be that bothered if he got rested, because I imagine most engaged managers will be on Salah captaincy tomorrow, so doesn't faze me. Yeah, that's pretty default selection for me.
I didn't pick Trent in my overhaul team. I didn't have him for large periods last season. I don't know why, because I tend to have him in every format apart from Sky, and it's purely because I don't think he's that great in Sky, because you're kind of reliant on a City. He doesn't get passing as often, as central defenders and things. I think kind of missing a trick a bit there on Trent, because it does seem that every time Liverpool keep a clean sheet, I do have a bit of a rank drop. Do you think Trent is as important to have as maybe Rudiger and Diaz, or do you think he's kind of second level down, or what are your thoughts, Paul?
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. He's not a stick on for passing bonus, and in games like FPL where his chances created merits the underlying bonus system that doesn't get picked up in Sky either. So, in comparison to Diaz, for me, it's be a no-brainer picking Diaz over him. And then when you're comparing him to guys like Rudiger, well, I'm sure this might come up I think this might come up in conversation later on, but a tactic for Sky, I imagine, is going to be the 3 premium strikers at some point, and how you move towards that, or how could you move towards that potentially, and then therefore playing players like Rudiger, who's going to pick up passing bonus, Azpilicueta, who's good at passing bonus. You got some underlying gems as well. Obviously, Webster does well when he's on the park and not injured. I think that tends to lead to not having Trent.
Cool. And you're nodding there, Ian, do you think the same?
Yeah, I think Trent's a great player, but points per million, I haven't got it up in front of me, but I bet it's not as good as the same defensive players for a cheaper price.
Yeah, it's fair enough. Yeah, I just interested because I wasn't sure whether I was, really kind of missing a trick there. Ian, captaincy on Saturday, Salah?
Oh, absolutely. No question.
Any transfer opportunity?
Is he 93%, isn't he? Top 1K?
Is he that much, is he?
I think so.
Any transfer opportunities at all on Saturday for anything?
On Saturday, only if you've got a Leeds player that does badly or gets injured tonight.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't really want to bring players in on a Saturday,
no, it's normally on
unless
Sunday
you have
Monday,
to. Yeah, the only one that I've seen that's coming up later in is the Lukaku play, I think Norwich or Southampton on a Saturday. That's the only one where I think it might be beneficial because it's the fixture change. But normally you won't want to bring them in on a Saturday if you don't have to.
And Sunday, Brighton and Leicester, West Ham and Man United. So we get to see the lineups for both of those games, and then Spurs and Chelsea. Captaincy, probably Ronaldo, I'd probably guess, is, starting captaincy there.
A bit of stick on if he's starting, won't he?
Anything for Rudiger or anything like that, or
I wouldn't put anyone off putting the armband on Lukaku with all the Spurs' injuries.
Yeah. So, question of the day then, and I'd help with this as well, is what to do with Webster. So obviously, he got confirmed this afternoon that he's going to be out until the international break. So I think that's probably 3 game weeks or 3 weeks. So it is a long time.
3 more weeks, yeah.
And it's also a Monday night captaincy in a couple of weeks as well against Palace as well, isn't it? So a couple of.
I'll go first on this, Fergie.
Oh, please do, mate.
Yeah, because I put my thoughts forward on a couple of WhatsApp groups, and my 2 penneth worth is if you can afford Gallagher, now is the time to get him in for Webster.
Yeah,
because he's a performing mid in an area where we're struggling to get performing players. So I think most of the engaged managers started with a 4-3-3, So you can go from Webster to Gallagher as long as you've got the 0.3 in the bank, and that'll give you currently a 3-4-3. And then when one of your midfielders that you've currently got starts not performing, then you can move them back to the next incoming defender at a similar price.
So that is my thought exactly. So I was torn between Gallagher and I noticed a bit of love for Duffy as well at 6.6, which like for like is great. I do think that Duffy will outscore Gallagher in the short term because Gallagher's fixtures over the next 3 or 4 are not the best. But I do think longer term, Gallagher's probably the better pick. And as you say, Ian, so I was having a play around with my team earlier. And as you say, I then went from 4-3-3 to 3-4-3. But what I noticed then, so I personally got Rafinha, Tielemans and Ward-Prowse in midfield along with Gallagher. What I can do then later on, as you say, I can then move on one of those underperforming mids, the more expensive ones, back down to someone. I could even potentially, if I've got a bit of change in the back, look at Aspilicueta or someone like that, and go back then to the what would that be then 4-3-3 again, or in my case it'll be 5-3-2 because I'm doing Calvert-Lewin back to Diaz. But
the only thing I would sort of caveat that with is if you want to make the mooted Ronaldo or Salah to Kane move, make sure that you're not short of that 0.1 or 0.2.
So just
use the planner, put it in,
absolutely,
and then work out you can do it.
So with that as well, because I was thinking about this. So what I wanted to have was enough money to basically to be able to afford the two most expensive premium strikers, which are Kane and Salah. So you can move between, Ronaldo and Lukaku or whatever, but you can always get to Kane and Salah if needed. Now by doing the Gallagher move, I can't, and this is my only issue is I can get from Salah to Kane, so I've got Kane and Ronaldo, but then I can't. I'm 0.1 off being able to afford Kane and Salah. However, I do think that Lukaku is going to be. I personally think he's going to be essential soon. That run of fixture they've got from game week 7 onwards.
The Southampton at home game, isn't it? The first
exactly
one.
is mental. So I've made a decision that I'm just going to leave it. I think in terms of because I'm going for Lukaku and he is cheaper, I can then make some forward-thinking moves later on, and then release some funds later to be able to get back to that Kane and Salah later. So apologies for kind of talking all through that, but I just wanted to.
That's the kind of thing that we all do when we're working it through, isn't it?
Exactly.
What do you think, Paul?
Yes.
Paul. So on this point, I've got Gallagher already. So for me, I've kind of weighed up the Webster options to 2. So Duffy 6.6 and Marcel from Wolves at 6.4. Now I know that I read into the Wolves manager's press conference points today. I think he was saying it like he's almost started Marcel with a clean slate this season, but Alt-Nouri's waiting on the bench, and it almost feels like kind of one poor performance or one mistake from Marcel, and Alt-Nouri comes back in. But I've used Ian's planner and sat and looked at potential moves that I'm going to make with the Lukaku move that you'd mentioned earlier on, and kind of what moves we need further down the line, and come up with a semi-plan that's flexible. So when you're looking at the Webster replacements, I would think of the budget, like what budget are you going to need to free up to make those moves potentially and minimise your number of transfers. So Marcel could be an option if you need the extra 0.2, and Duffy was going to be the move.
Yeah, I just think with Marcel, I read the comments as well, and basically the manager said Marcel has to keep performing at the level he is because he's got Alt-Nouri looking over his shoulder, and that concerns me a little bit, because if Marcel does have a bad game or two, you could see him being dropped, which would obviously not be very nice. But their fixtures are amazing for weeks and weeks, aren't they?
What about Kilman? He's played all 4 games, 6.2 million. Wolves have got that incredible run as well.
Is Bollies is threatening? Is that right?
Yeah, but so he's like, Wolves have been playing well defensively. Does he have to make a mistake for Bolly to come in as well? I don't know if that's the same.
Yeah, same for Marcel and Alt-Nouri, isn't it?
Fair enough.
It's tricky.
It is. And the other one then is obviously, there's a couple actually, there's Antonio and Calvert-Lewin. So, a bit of a nightmare. Obviously, Antonio, my advice personally would be, I don't have him, but I would say hold him personally. He's got Leeds next week, which is an awesome fixture. They've got some nice fixtures after that. Have either of you got Antonio?
Anybody that's still got Antonio is obviously keeping him because the moves were to somebody on Sunday or somebody Monday last week.
Yeah, I think a few did Antonio to Gray, I think, wasn't it, when Calvert-Lewin wasn't.
There was also Bamford, wasn't there, on Sunday?
Yeah, okay.
Fergie, remember when we were on the last pod, and came up with 5 alternative options?
I knew you were going to bring this up.
And you said at the start of the show, if it wasn't like I was just for the sake of, I'll summarise it. I can't remember verbatim what you said, but it was something like that. It just sounds like you're throwing 5 people's names out there for the sake of it. And Andros Townsend was in that list.
I'm not sure.
I was waiting for this today.
I'm not sure it was that harsh, but it was good.
No, there was some jibs pre going live.
Pre-going live,
well.
It was. Yeah. Probably a bit harsher pre-live than I am on the show. I was like, Paul, what the fuck is this you're chucking in here now? Are you just like wasting our time or whatever else? But you put Townsend in.
He was right, though.
He was. Well, he's always right, isn't he? This is why he's bloody.
There was 2 reasons why I picked Townsend. One was like his underlying tackling stats are pretty good for Sky, so he can tick over without getting attacking returns. But I just thought that he'll get used quite well by Benitez this season. Even if Calvert-Lewin's not playing and Rondon plays, and that. Like the majority of his goals come from like headed chances as well. Or that certainly from me remembering what Rondon was like. I'm sure he's got a hat-trick of headers one time for West Brom.
I guess so. You can say what you like about Benitez, but nobody can ever say it doesn't matter who you support. He is a good manager.
Absolutely, yeah. And Fire and Blood says get in Townsend from Everton as well. Yeah. Michael Chappell brought in Richarlison after DCL disaster. What to do now? 0.8 in the bank. What would you do with Richarlison now? Ian, if you had Richarlison, what would you do?
If I had him, I'd be keeping him till Norwich.
Yeah, that's a good show.
And then moving him on.
Yeah, because they play on the Saturday as well, don't they? So you move him on
the Saturday. And I think you can move on the Sunday. Yeah. It all depends. I mean, I had Calvert-Lewin in a team, and I had enough money in the bank to get him to Lukaku. And the original plan was he was going to come in after the Norwich game, but now he's coming in next Sunday away at Tottenham.
And Ton Hartnell says Gallagher also gives you a captain versus Arsenal. Obviously, that's one of the Arsenal games. I think it's later on than I thought it was. Like game week 10 and 11, isn't it? It's quite a while.
Yeah, the back end of October.
It is bloody way off. And I brought in Ben White, trying to be clever.
I did notice. Yeah,
it's got shades of Gabriel last season. Remember, and everyone brought him in like 2 or 3 weeks in advance, and then he got COVID and missed those 2 games.
Well, I thought
you went Lacazette for Fergie.
Don't remind me. You have to remind me that for Paul.
He's holding on to that, Paul.
I am. So with White, I was quite disappointed he didn't get passing against Norwich. Obviously, it's not good signs. I thought they'd get the passing because I think it was White and Gabriel both started last week, weren't they? Both, and they're both known for their kind of tip tapping back and forth, but it didn't quite happen. I think he did okay for passes. I checked at half time. He was on 30 at half time. So he can't have been like massively far away. I'm not sure what he ended up on. But anyway, question for Fire and Blood is Ferran Torres worth holding? Paul, is Ferran Torres worth holding?
I always mention this about the kind of 8 to 9 million-ish mark midfielders. It's if I always get stung playing that price bracket. I think I'm never good at selecting players from there. If I was going to pick a player in that price bracket, I would pick them and I would just play them all the way until they got injured or suspended, regardless, and not make any moves. Because I think you could waste so many transfers. That 8 to 9 million bracket, your Tielemans, your Ward-Prowse, like Zaha's usually in that price bracket as well, is that the run will go 2-2-2-2, 15-10, 2-2-2-2, 2, and then and they always seem to pick them up in like the games against the big teams as well, where you least expect them. Yeah. So if you've got Torres in your team, my advice would be, if you don't need the budget or you don't need the captaincy anywhere else, I would just keep them in for the long term.
I would as well.
It will average out.
Agreed. Phil Speck says, oof, typical. Trent 3.24 points per match. Diaz 3.21 for courtesy of FF staff. Thank you there, Phil, for confirming that. Obviously, it's early days so far into the season, and it's
so that's like a 0.01 difference in percentage. I don't think we're going to worry about that.
No, definitely not. Sky Sports Fantasy Football Bite Size Dan Cox. Even all good to have Fergie back. Fans taking a holiday during the season. It'll be my last one. Don't worry about that. I know I've been away twice at the start of this season. I will be here every single week from now on. Don't worry about that. AD says White wasn't good for passing bonus at Brighton. I know. I thought you might have been at Arsenal, because Arsenal at one stage last year with Holding and Gabriel, they were getting the pass on a regular basis. So I thought that White would be better, a bit better there, I suppose. But we'll see. It's early days. But the more I'm thinking about it on those Arsenal ones, I'm tempted personally to go for a bit of Orba. I think I mentioned this in the overhaul special. I think I might just go for it. But we'll see. We'll see what. Anyway,
I think with the passing bonus guys, Andrew, you're probably better off looking at the club rather than the player.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah,
seems to be certain clubs get it all of the time.
Yes, yeah. No, it does. I just thought, because Arsenal's first three fixtures were horrible.
Yeah, they were tricky. We said that on the overhaul show,
and then
they
had
Brentford away in the early game, and then City and Chelsea, didn't they?
So I thought they may improve. But we'll see. We'll see about that. We did have the average remaining transfers this week, courtesy of Sky Fantasy. So top 5,000. So this was I think Wednesday maybe. So could expect maybe a slight dip this evening potentially. But top 5,000, 36 transfers left. Top 1,000, 35.1 transfers left. Top 100 have already used an average of 11 transfers, and the top 10 have already used over 15 transfers. So I think it's pretty much the same every year. Looks
almost identical to last year.
Really?
Yeah, someone had done a comparison somewhere. Yeah, it was pretty close.
Almost identical.
Interesting. So,
and you'll get to game week 10 or 11, and then it'll start coming back.
Yes. Yeah. You're right. So I'm on. I've used one. I've got another. I think I've got another two planned. Because I did the DCL. I started with DCL and I was planning on moving him to Diaz after the captaincy. So I've still got that move to make, and I've also got Webster likely to Gallagher as well, which I'm going to make. So, but reasonably happy there with all the transfers I used. The other one was a failed Salah to Kane on the game, on the game before the pre-overhaul, which if that had paid off, would have been laughing. Obviously, it didn't.
Yeah, that was the right move, though. I think
it was. Like I say, I always know when I've done a bad move, and it's not. It doesn't necessarily compute to the actual outcome, does it? That move for Kane, I think, was still the right move. It was just, an unfortunate outcome. Whereas, every move I make this season, I'm planning on being happy with it, and those three moves now I'm making, I'm perfectly happy with. There's nothing I would do differently.
I've got four set up until the end of November in one.
You were going to say end of November.
Yeah,
that's ages away.
No, it's not.
Flipping heck. I've got others lined up in terms of Lukaku. I think there's like a Salah to Kane or something potentially as well in there, but we'll have a look at that maybe next week.
I like that or something.
Or something. I can't remember exactly what it is, but definitely, I think at one stage I completely changed from Salah and Ronaldo to Kane and Lukaku. I think, and then I go back to Salah or something along those lines.
Yeah, mine's similar. That's using what I'm estimating up until I think December the 2nd, which is a Thursday, I think.
That'll be good going in. If you can retain your rank up until then, you are absolutely laughing. Mind you, you went from 200th to 1,460th.
Nightmare. First week. Unbelievable.
It just shows how volatile.
All that planning, 2 weeks worth of effort, and I might as well have not bothered.
Indeed.
Crazy.
Let's have a look at a few of the questions we had through on Twitter. So this was off Ollie Paul. Who do you think scores better in the short and long term, Cooper or Gilmore? He's ahead of the curve on Gallagher, like Paul is, and had him from the start. Paul, who would you prefer, Cooper or Gilmore? Cooper. Ian? Cooper as well. That answers that. Craig Nice says, opinions on Pinnock. I'm fairly happy with my team going forward, but worried about this pick. picked him at overhaul. Only had one game. Nearly got a clean sheet last week. Would you just leave him in, guys? And
he's not.
see how
He's
it plays out?
not picked him for any reason other than budget, as he say. You might as well leave him in.
Yeah, exactly. Paul, same, yeah.
Yeah, nothing to add to that. Agree with the reasoning from Ian as well.
A good question in the chat of Tom Hartnell. Do you think planning until as far in advance as November is worthwhile? So much can happen before then.
Don't ask me that.
Don't ask Ian, because we know Ian's answer. I would say yes, but I do it in every format. I make a very, very rough plan. You've got like a rough plan avenue, and then you can react, if you need to. But if you haven't got a plan and you're going kind of even month on month, it can help. If we knew in game week 2 that we are going to want to jump on loads of Chelsea players in game week 7 or 8, right? So we're kind of thinking about that, kind of all the way through. And I think it's more like that. I think it's more like where you want to be at a certain point, and by making. And that then affects the decision to potentially make along the way in terms of who.
Well, there's one thing I probably can input there, Andrew.
Go on, Ian, you go for it.
Bear in mind when you think Chelsea are going to be playing in Qatar in the World Club Cup.
Good shout.
We don't know exactly when it is yet.
No.
We don't even know exactly where it is yet.
No.
But when we do, when those games are going to be moved, and you're going to need to move off your Chelsea players onto somebody else, and then back to them in probably January. Exactly the same with Man City when they had all of those games in, was it last January? When everybody moved on, we had 7 or 8 Man City players at the same time.
You're right.
For the same reason.
It's African Cup of Nations in January as well.
That's complicate things further. Yeah. So, Paul, in terms of planning, a couple of months ahead, what are your thoughts?
See, 2 or 3 years ago in Sky, I used to be meticulous in what I was doing for the next 2 or 3 months and have it planned out exactly on Ian's planner, the exact moves I was doing. But I think last season in particular kind of made me change up how I was doing. So the 2 things that I would be wary of is don't book yourself into a formation that you can't flexibly get out of. So the 5-3-2 formation we know is pretty inflexible to get out of. That you have to make a defensive move. If you're changing formation, the defender has to go to a striker. There's not many strikers that you would want that's going to be at the same price as the defenders, so you're going to have budget for that. So my second point would be any moves you're making. This was kind of to my point earlier on in Webster, is that if you can free up budget, like the Gallagher move makes sense long term, right? So I'm definitely not suggesting people don't make that move, but freeing up some budget, right, to someone like Duffy might be a play, knowing that you might need that money later on as well. So I wouldn't discount that when you're making your moves.
I think for me, and this goes, this goes for all formats. For me, it's all about price points and flexibility is what I plan for above all else. Obviously, when you're talking about specific games, there's captaincy and fixture runs, but definitely in Dream Team, in Sky, in Telegraph, and in FBL actually, just kind of thinking about how I play the game. For me, it's all about making sure that you've got enough money in the bank to be able to basically, either enough money in the bank or the price points available to be able to move whoever you want to move to in one move, rather than having to make 2 moves. You mentioned this last year a lot, Paul, and I got burnt, especially in Telegraph, and in Sky, in the past. Every time you want to make a transfer, you have to make 2 transfers because you've kind of cornered yourself or snookered yourself, and that's just such a bad place to be in, right? So Sean Thorpe says, going to settle down tonight and bash out a spreadsheet. I thought he said something else for a second there. I was going to say, I mean, we've all done that, Sean, but we haven't talked about it on stream.
If you're a hub member, just download Ian's planner for Sky, and it's already preset.
Well, Sean's a contributor, so Sean, just get on. Bash out
as much as you like.
Go and get it in spreadsheet. Do whatever you want to do on a Friday evening. Zvonimir says Parrin is going to win Sky. I can feel it. It's hard to argue with the start you've had. And Sean Thorpe says, Hub 1, 2, 3. We can only wish. And 4 and 5, obviously, with
that would be nice. Yeah.
Dan and Liam as well. More questions. John just asked, about Webster, Duffy, White, or Gallagher. All cover 2 captaincy days. I think we've all, think Gallagher probably looks, if you haven't got Gallagher, I think it's probably fair to say that Gallagher's favourite. Paul,
that'd be my preference. As long as it fits in with the rest of the plan.
Exactly. Paul, if you didn't have Gallagher, would you be willing to get him in?
Yeah, on that budget thing, I wouldn't be moving to White now. As I say, that's a kind of move that I would make 2 or 3 years ago, having planned so far in advance. But I think the game, like the Premier League's evolving, COVID and everything that goes with that as well, that I wouldn't be planning captaincy days for 6-7 weeks down the road, and instead just sorting your team structure out and budget, etc.
Exactly.
You still look to do your move, Paul, where every move you make towards the best team you think's going on?
Yeah.
Really good advice, that.
And that was why I started with Azpilicueta and Rudiger, because I had Christensen in my overhaul team quite a bit, and then I thought, well, if there's a place out of the 3 of those that could be lost by the time that the Chelsea run comes, like I was almost thinking, what does my team want to look like in 2 or 3 weeks' time, as opposed to even the current week, and that's the reason I set up with those 2 in my overhaul team as well. But I do that quite a lot, and especially around the captaincy, is that plan out who I think will be the most captain's player on every day. And this was to that point about the not making 2 moves to do it. I remember doing it to Aguero, and Aguero got injured and stuff.
That's before. One of the reasons why I added that captain slot into the transfer planner, just so people could do the same thing.
Yep.
Great advice. FF Dempsey asks, what teams are on your naughty list for the season? i.e. you're unlikely to pick one of their players all season. Any teams so far that are on your naughty list? Probably a bit early. Spurs except
Norwich.
Kane. Norwich maybe.
Burnley.
Yeah.
I'm not as enamoured with Brentford. I had Tony to start with, but I think this is a season.
The only good thing about Brentford is if they have a run, you can get one of the cheap players in, can't you?
Yeah, Pinnock, or one of the cheap defenders. Or even
I had a bit of stick on Twitter earlier this week saying that I don't think Leeds and Wolves are as good as their fixtures make out. We'll see how that pans out.
We will indeed. Buemo as well. I know he's unlikely to be a popular pick because he's not going to be good for bonus, but he could score a hat-trick again last week. He looks so dangerous. I do wonder whether he's going to have a good run.
Another one of those that misses points on a regular basis. Yeah.
Paul Willis, how do you all keep an edge in the game when you generously share your views? That is a good question. Ian, what do you think about that? Why do you spill your knowledge and your heart out to everyone?
I expect the chance of me winning the overall thing is reasonably slim. So I don't mind helping people out. That's just the kind of guy I am, Andrew.
Oh, just the kind of guy he is. How about you, Paul? Why do you spill your guts?
I think gone are the days that I could play all the cash leagues that were going along on Twitter and advertised elsewhere, because there's so many engaged managers now, and it almost feels like a large punt of putting a lot of money in to potentially get a lot of money back out. So it's moved from that I could put a small wager on and potentially win a lot of money outside of the big leagues. Yeah. And in terms of and I like talking about Sky Fantasy. I think it's the best fantasy game out there. Based on the rules and such, like in the daily captaincies, etc. And I just like talking about it. Like I've been friends virtually with Dan for quite a while, and he's another that they say that the 2 of us have talked fantasy quite a lot, Sky Fantasy quite a lot. In terms of the edge, so this might sound crazy, not the former part, but I always make sure, and my other half knows this, that half an hour before team reveal deadline on any calendar day is, and I'm bad at multitasking as well, is please just don't speak to me. Like, please let me check the lineups. Please let me do this, etc. So every hour before before a match day kickoff, I'm like glued to the phone or glued to the laptop or get the team news. And I always think that maybe like 2-3 times a season that there's information that comes out that can help like long-term planning the Sky game. Now, this isn't like we don't do a stream an hour before every kickoff, right? So prime example, Gameweek 3, I think 2 seasons ago, Gameweek 3, it's a Sunday and there's 4 game weeks before the overhaul, right? So I think none of us like using transfers unnecessarily before overhaul or want to keep it to a minimum. But there was rotation on the Chelsea front line, on the Man City front line at the time. So Jesus, there was talk of Aguero getting phased out and stuff like that as well. The Man City team comes out playing Newcastle, first kickoff, so get to see the lineups. No Jesus on the bench, Aguero starting. So there was no rumours about Jesus being injured, etc. But he's not on the bench, which makes me think, right, he's picked up an injury. I'm going to use one of my transfers to bring in Aguero. He wasn't heavily owned at the time because of that rotation piece. Brought him in, captained him, scored a double against Newcastle, shot me right up the rankings. Played the following week. Jesus is still injured. You get Aguero captaincy out of then as well. And when you're backing someone like Aguero as a differential as a captain, you get crazy advantage. And that was all from seeing the lineup an hour and then taking half an hour to think about, right, this is how I could do this with the team. This is who I don't mind losing. And then just gaining a small advantage like that. So if we're talking about
I remember it well. I was on holiday and didn't get a chance to do it.
So that's what I mean. Like there's very few opportunities that'll happen a season, but I think there is kind of 2 or 3 times, and maybe like my experience in playing the Sky game, I can think of a long-term plan pretty quickly or adapt my long-term plan pretty quickly. So that's where I think I'm.
We had similar last year, didn't we? I think it was Fulham and Burnley, and their game got cancelled late on, and there was another game on a Sunday, and you could move somebody in for a captaincy. Can't remember the exact details, but it's very, very similar.
Yeah, and you don't get many of them throughout the season, and there is a lot of engaged managers, but you make the most of them when they come.
Yeah.
Great insight, lads. Thanks. Yeah, I do it because I just really enjoy it. You know, I spend most of my waking time thinking or doing something about fantasy football now for the last 20 odd years, and just want to chat about it and share it and stuff. Forced to find a platform.
You'd only be wasting time otherwise, wouldn't you, Andrew?
I want to be wasting time doing spending time with family and doing all this stuff. It's all about the fantasy. In the chat, Piggy Rascal, thoughts on bringing in Saint-Maximin to cover the captaincy tonight. Just had known for the game, have to replace Webster. So took a punt. He's done it already. Has a good 4 or 5 games coming up. It's definitely a punt.
He's done Webster to Saint-Maximin?
Yes.
Okay, fair enough.
It's definitely a punt, but
yeah.
And Joe Linton was playing, like, I don't know how they'll line up tonight, but against Man United last week, Joe Linton played out wide.
Yeah, he did.
Almost like in the Jesus kind of role that he's playing for Man City these days, and it's Saint-Maximin playing through the middle. So Leeds look really poor defensively, so it definitely could be a really good shot.
So Newcastle have got Leeds, Watford, Wolves, Tottenham, Palace, Chelsea.
Not bad.
Yeah, it could. Also, Sunday 17th could be a captaincy.
He's in that
zone. There's only 2 games that day.
He's in that dead zone of midfield that you mentioned as well, Ian. So you could move on another midfielder further down the line.
Last couple of questions before we wrap up. Lee Williams, looking at FF Stats fixture grid with the fixture we have at the moment, there doesn't seem to be any 3-for-1s that shout out points. Should we just fix any injuries and ride it out until we do get these, or is it being overly conservative? So my thoughts on this briefly is I personally wouldn't be looking at 3-for-1s yet. It's all the advantage for those, for me, is in the second half of the season, unless there's some kind of injury or fixture movement or something where it forces you, like this Webster injury or Calvert-Lewin, it forces you to look elsewhere. I think, DCL to Bamford was like a 4-1 or something, wasn't it? But in terms of planning them in advance, unless there's a captaincy requirement, I would just leave to the second half of the season. Ian, you're a transfer saver, aren't you? So
yeah, save as many as you can. And even though the podcast and the show is called the 3-for-1, I think that's probably an outdated motion now. transfer trail is the way forward.
Transfer trail. We love a transfer trail. The old
transfer trail.
The daisy chain podcast.
Yeah, you don't want to be looking to bring the same player back in.
No, exactly.
Move one out onto somebody else, and then onto the next big thing.
Agree. John Maloney, to Kane or not to Kane? Spurs look awful at the moment, but what's the alternative if you don't get Kane in terms of captaincy, especially in the coming game weeks? Paul, what do you think about Kane? It is a tough one.
Yeah, so it's a change. It's a change in environment. What we're looking at, I think, by the time we make the Kane, we were planning on making the Kane move. We'll have more information then. We'll see how have they changed
2 weeks time, Paul. Yeah.
Yeah. Have they changed formation? Yeah. Is he getting in the box more? Is he getting shots away more? If the answer to those are yes, then I'll probably move him on. If not, I think I've got captaincy covered on all the Spurs days anyway, so I could just not move him on, and then I could be more flexible. Instead of looking for 3 big hitters up front, I could just move Salah onto Lukaku and then get Salah back for someone else further down the line. So I appreciate we're not answering the question, but I don't know that we need to answer the question this week anyway.
I answer a lot of questions on Twitter across all formats with let's see how the week plays out, or let's see how the next 2 game weeks play out, because things now will very unlikely be the same in 2 weeks' time, apart from the premium teams is usually, you know that Chelsea, Man City, for example, are going to win the majority of their games, right? And they're probably going to keep clean sheets, and they're probably going to score goals. Aside from that, I think the other 18 teams, maybe kind of Liverpool and probably most Man United now, with Ronaldo there.
If you have a look at the odds for the top 4, Andrew, it's Chelsea and Manchester City at the top. Yeah. Liverpool and Manchester United battling for 3rd and 4th. Yeah. And then the next best was something like 100-1, which was Tottenham. And
this what I mean. So the kind of remainder of those teams, it's very difficult to predict what they're going to be like in 2 or 3 weeks' time. Like Spurs have gone from the top of the league a week ago, albeit they hadn't played particularly well. They've gone from the top of the league to being hammered to Palace, to being now everyone being worried about Kane, whereas now everyone's really excited about Leeds, Wolves, and maybe Arsenal, whereas in 3 weeks' time it may be completely different. So my advice,
I'm going to do some work on this for next time on the pod, probably back end of October or whatever, whenever it turns out to be. I'll do some work on home and away fixtures, because we're back in the crowds at home, and also goal scored, goal against, that kind of thing. Because I think this year we're looking at more goals being scored and more of those goals being scored at home.
Yeah,
we've only had 4 weeks so far, but if that carries on, you might want to look at your captaincy plans for home players and attacking ones.
That's a really good shout. I look forward to that analysis. I'm just checking. I've set my captain on Sky before we do all this bloody chat, and I'm sure I have.
You got Joe Linton, yeah?
I haven't got Joe Linton. Yeah, it's on Rafinha. It's on Rafinha. In the A team and the B team. I just wanted to check that. Okay, last question. Oh, sorry. Comment off FPL Reactions, who does work with the Dream Team guys. Absolutely love these. Absolutely love these streams. This is the reason I'm 860th in my first season ever. Also, Ian is a genius. Ian, you must be slipping him some cash. Is that right?
No, you must. I'm going to have cash to slip to anybody, mate.
No, indeed. Okay. I think that is it from us this evening, gents. Thank you so much, Paul and Ian, for joining me. Dan was working this evening, which is why he couldn't join us, but he will be back on Sunday. Apologies we couldn't make a stream on Sunday. I was away on Sunday. Dan did some. If you don't follow Dan's Sky Bite Size, make sure you do. Just a quick thing about Torres captain tomorrow. Feast or famine, mate. I'd be careful there.
I'd be away from that.
I'd be careful. You could fly high.
You need to see the lineups for a City captain.
You could fly high or you could sink low. He was brought off early midweek.
But how much higher do you think you're going to fly with that?
Well, if Salah's at home, no, I just wouldn't do it. But if people want to do it, it's up to them. But they have to know the risks. This is what I say.
I'm not disagreeing with that. But
is you depending on what happens, you could fly or you could fall massively. And in this game at this stage, it's probably just around just being sensible.
And that's something else before we disappear then, Andrew.
Yeah, go
on the WhatsApp group, a few people are already asking, do we need a differential?
No, absolutely not.
We're in game week 5.
No, don't.
No.
Differentials will appear, and you can't force differential. They will appear, and you will think, "Ooh, look at that play! Look at that!" In game week 10, they've got that fixture or those fixtures or whatever else. You can't force differential, and there's no need. It's too early. This is where people's seasons go to pot, don't they? Because they try and be, and I say that people. I'm not talking about people. I'm talking about people, as in all of us. We've all done it before. We try and be too clever, overmanage our teams, use transfers needlessly. So, okay.
We're not talking about the podcast league tonight, no. Are we waiting for that till Sunday for that?
No. I think we should wait to see how the weekend plays out before we talk about the leagues. No, I don't have them to hand.
I'm 1 point ahead of Ian, so I might not be there on Sunday.
Might not be on Sunday. No. Okay. Thank you so much, Paul. Where can we find you, Paul?
On Twitter at Paul McAnulty 1, MCANULTY.
Thank
you. Great stuff, Paul. And Ian, where can we find you?
You can find me on the hub doing the planners for Sky and for Sun Dream Team and for Telegraph, and on Twitter at PlanItSky.
Superb. Thank you so much, Ian. Thank you for joining us, obviously, this evening. And my Twitter handle is at FFH_Fergie. Make sure you drop all three of us a follow. If you liked what you watched, please click the like button. Would be much appreciated if you press the like button. And remember to subscribe in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen if you haven't already. Our handles on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok are at FFH_HQ, and our podcast Twitter handle is at FFH_Sky. Please follow and feel free to ask us any questions. Our website is fantasyfootballhub.co.uk, where you'll find everything you need for fantasy football all under one roof, including player comparison tools, the fixture ticker, Opta stats, top player team reveals, and much more. Just those who are worried about Salah not starting tomorrow, likely that, I would guess that 90% of the teams who will finish in the top 100 overall at the end of the season will captain Salah tomorrow. Don't worry about it. If we get these random benches.
I think that's being conservative.
I think it is being conservative. It's probably higher, but don't worry, because anyone who will be challenging in your mini leagues, if they go against it, if they go for Torres, for example, and he bangs a hat-trick in, and you're thinking, oh my goodness, the likely is they're going to do that at various times in the season and they won't have the same result. So just don't worry about it. Just do the sensible thing is our advice. We'll be back with Dan on Sunday, looking ahead. So what will it be? It'll be Sky Game Week 7, won't it? Stay safe and good night all.